What is up? Justin here. I am back. It has been a while. I'm sure a lot of you know I went out of the country. Father Brutality and Incantation went on a short European tour beginning of this month. It was a lot of fun. The shows were fucking awesome. The people were awesome. It was great. But upon getting back, I immediately got sick, which tends to happen anytime I go on any kind of fucking trip like that. I am still not over it. I'm coughing. I've had this nagging, nasty cough for going on 3 weeks now. And just getting back into the swing of things with work and life and home after being gone for a week. I don't know how bands go on tour for, 6 weeks at a time or a month at a time, and then try to lead a normal life. They don't. I mean, bands that tour like that do it constantly, and my hat's off to them. So, anyway, I'm back. I've picked up a lot of stuff in the past few weeks. Got a lot of things overseas. So I want to talk about those and show you what I got. So, first, we are listening to Godless. I talked about Godless in the CD videos back in the G's. They are a Chilean death metal band. This is actually an EP called Irreligiosis Nemi Discrepante. I have this on all three formats. It came out on tape, it came out on CD, and it came out on... I can't turn it the right way. It came out on, there we go. It came out on tape, it came out on CD, and it came out on a double 7-inch set, and I've got all of them. This band, I befriended their bass player many years ago via MySpace. We became buddies, and we've always traded back and forth. And Godless are a really, really killer death metal band. They remind me a lot of older Immolation. It's kind of technical and dissonant and abysmal sounding, man. But they're killer. I put this on a few weeks ago. I hadn't listened to it in years, and it just fucking floored me. So if you like old school sounding death metal, but with that kind of like weird Immolation spin on it, definitely check out Godless. So, got some new stuff. Back in April, Incantation played a show here in Atlanta with a few bands. Void is a death metal band from Alabama, but they might as well be an Atlanta band. They're real tight with all of us guys here in Atlanta. And they were releasing this called Inner Death is an EP. I picked up the tape version and the 7-inch version because they had them both. Directive Void is, kind of an old school sounding death metal band. They got this little ethereal slant to them. I've seen them a bunch. I've been friends with them for a long time. But I cannot tell you just how fucking blown away I am by this new material. They lost their guitar player a year before last. He died. And they had a new guy join, Charlie. Charlie plays in the Atlanta band, Sadistic Ritual, and a black metal band called Vermeer, who I'm going to talk about in just a second. But Charlie's guitar playing has taken these guys to the next level, man. It is fucking just killer, nasty-ass American death metal. So this is a 3-song EP. Came out on Blood Harvest. And it fucking rips. So I hope that there will be big things on the horizon for Ectovoid. They've been at it for a long time. So I picked up the 7-inch as well. It also came out on Blood Harvest. I have not listened to the 7-inch yet, and my copy is on black vinyl, fold-out cover. It's fucking killer. So, the show that Incantation played, in part, was a record release party for Ecto Void, but it was also a release for the new Vermeer. And I have the CD, but it's not with me, but I have the LP. So, Vermeer is a black metal band from Atlanta. That light there. And they play black metal, really riffy black metal that's kind of reminiscent of Emperor or, you know, bands that took it a step further. They don't have any synth or anything, but they're real riffy, and the songs are structured really, you know, technically, and I don't know how to describe it, man. They fucking rip. If you like black metal from dudes that know how to fucking play their instruments and are not just rehashing the same shit over again, check out Vermeer. This is their second album. It's called Triumphant Master of Fates. They're good buddies of mine. I had the pleasure of doing the layout for this record. So if you pick it up and you like the way it looks and you want your record to look cool as well, hit me up. I'll make it look cool. So this came out on Boras Records. Boras is a local Atlanta label that's been supporting our metal community for a long time. My copy is on this really fucking sick green vinyl. It's marbly looking. It's so fucking cool. Man, I cannot stress to you how fucking amazing this band is, and how technical and just precise they are. They are the real fucking deal. They play a lot. They tour a lot. They're getting out more and more. So if you can go see Vermeer, go check them out. So, okay. I've got some CDs. Real quick, the first one, Father Befouled, we had our first album reissued on CD a few months ago by Crusader Productions. And in the correspondence with the guy behind Crusader, he sent me some of his releases, and one of them was this, Eggs of Gomorrah, with Outpregnate. I didn't know anything about this band, and I thought the name was kind of silly, but it has really, really killer Daniel Desecrator artwork. So I decided to throw it on, and it's real wild kind of bestial war metal, but bestial war metal with riffs and dynamic to it, and it's really fucking cool. So I really enjoyed it. I went through that war metal phase like a lot of people did about 10 years ago, where I wanted shit to just be as caveman as possible. And as you move through that, you pick a few bands you like Black Witchery and Proclamation and Blasphemy and Conqueror whoever, and then a lot of it just falls to the side because it's not that interesting. I like this. It's fucking abysmal and dynamic and fucking cool, and the artwork is fucking insane, but it's still got a silly name. So, we went to Europe. I went to Europe, and I didn't buy anything the whole time I was there until I got to NDF, because there was distros fucking everywhere. But before we got there, when I was in London, someone gave this to me, and I believe his name was Hayden, and I believe he told me he watches the channel, so awesome. And this is his band or project, Absinthe. I was familiar with the name. I think I've seen this in distros maybe. I have not had a chance to listen to it yet, but thank you for giving it to me, and I'm going to spin it real soon, and I'll come back around to it. So I appreciate that. So, I did not buy anything the whole time we were on tour. We didn't have like local bands or opening bands on tour. It was just the 4-band package. It's Father Defiled and Incantation, and then Crypts from Finland, and Jupiterian from Brazil. And you get busy on tour. There's a lot of sitting in the fucking van traveling, and there's a lot of, like, you get to the club, you unload, you set your shit up, you sound check, you set up the merch, and then you have the show, and then you're like, oh fuck, I didn't go buy anything. I wanted to pick up Crypt stuff and Jupiterian stuff, and you're watching your money on tour, and it just never happened. But once we got to NDF, and I had been budgeting to be there, I knew that I had a little bit of money to spend, and there were a few like huge CD distros. So from a couple of them together, I picked up some scores. The first thing I bought, the first God Dethroned record. I talked about God Dethroned at length several videos ago. They're one of my favorite bands. I got into them a long time ago, over 20 years ago, and I've always really, really, really liked them. I kind of fell off about 10 years ago. Their albums got kind of boring, and the thematic stuff got kind of uninteresting. They came back around. Their last couple records have been really killer. But I had never owned a copy of the first one. And I went to buy it not that long ago. I ordered it on Discogs, and a couple days later, I got an email saying my order had been canceled. I had even paid for it. It said my order had been canceled, my money was refunded, with no explanation as to why. So I was like, fuck it. And I didn't go out on my way to buy another one. But I saw this in the distro, so I picked it up. This is a reissue from a few years ago on Vic Records, which is a Dutch label, and God Dethroned is from the Netherlands. So I thought it was cool that I bought their first record in the Netherlands. This is the original intended artwork for it. It's a dissected rat that the band killed and dissected themselves. There's a story all about it in the booklet. Now, this is not by any stretch my favorite book. It's got a bunch of text and a couple of pictures. It's not my favorite. God Dethroned has this really brutal but melodic sound. They have really catchy riffs and really hooky riffs, but they're heavy and they're fast and they're just really nasty sounding, but really melodic. But this record is more just brutal. It's way less dynamic than the ones that came after it, and it's kind of a forgotten record in my opinion. But it rules. I'm glad to have it. I've listened to it several times since I got home from our trip. So, love having it. I love God Dethroned. Real quick, I missed a tape. I also picked up the demo from Seraphic Entombment. Seraphic Entombment is two of the guys from Ecto Void and another guy. And they do really wretched, slow, suffocating doom death. Kind of similar to what we do in Incantation. But we've played with these guys before. And the night that Ecto Void played with Incantation and Vimir, the next night, Seraphic Entombment was playing. A different show. Same venue. But I couldn't make it the next night, but they had these tapes on hand. This is actually going to be released on Unholy Domain, and I believe it's going to be identical to this, but they weren't going to have them in time, so they ordered their own copies, and Chris told me they're the same except for the label logo's not on. So, anyway, Seraphic Entombment, it's called Quelled, and I love their logo. The dude from Swallow drew it, and it's fucking sick. Anyway, Seraphic Entombment, they're fucking awesome as well. Okay, so, looking through CDs some more, then I stumble across this one, Cannibal Corpse, Cannibalizing Cleveland, 1997. This is a live record, early George Fisher lineup, This is a single insert with no fold or anything, but this record sounds really good. It may be like a soundboard recording or just it was recorded decently, and it's got a killer track listing on it. They open with Perverse Suffering, fucking covered with sores, addicted to vaginal skin, gutted, skull full of maggots, devoured by vermin, and of course they end it with Hammer Smash Face. But it's killer, and I love Cannibal Corpse, and anything like off the beaten path by them, I'm going to try to snatch up. So, then at that same booth, I grabbed two more. CDs were like $12 each or 3 for $25 or something. So I grabbed Brutality, Screams of Anguish. Of course, Brutality is a long-standing Tampa Bay area death metal band. And they are a band that I kind of I did ignore for fucking years. I always thought that their name was a little too on the nose. It was a little too like, you know, Brutality. It was kind of simple. It's like that Mitch Hedberg joke where he said he was in a death metal band, but they were lazy, so they were just called Injured.
I played in a death metal band. A lot of death metal bands have intense names like Rigor Mortis or Mortuary or Obituary. We weren't that intense. We just went with Injured.
But Brutality has played here in Atlanta like 3 times in the past 2 years, and I've missed them every time. I recently found out that one of the main guys in this band, Jay Fernandez, is responsible for writing most of one of my favorite records of all time, In Dark Purity by Monstrosity. He wrote a lot of that record, even though he didn't stay with the band on that touring cycle. All he did was play on that record. So when I found that out, Screams of Anguish shot to the top of my list, and then I saw it, so I snagged it. And man, this record, I don't know why it's not more heralded than it is, because it is so fucking sick. It is riffy and unpredictable, and it's not structured, basic. I was always expecting Brutality to sound like Obituary, to sound kind of straightforward, and they don't, man. God damn, they fucking rip. So I need to get into the rest of their catalog, but I am stoked to own this one. Then the fucking GOAT, man. Seance, For Never Laid to Rest. So you've seen Ben talk about this one a lot recently. This is a record that I also overlooked for years. A buddy of mine, like, I don't know, man, like 16 or 17 years ago, mailed me a CDR, a Data CDR, full of death metal albums. And this was one of them that was on it. And I remember listening to it a couple times. And back then, I was so balls deep in black metal that it was just in one ear, out the other. I always thought the title was kind of silly. The word for never is the portmanteau, and I'm weird about grammatical shit like that. But in the last couple of years, I sat down with it and realized how fucking great it is. It's this killer fucking Swedish death metal record that sounds like an American death metal record. And then come to find out that copies of it are just super expensive. This one, to the best of my knowledge, is a bootleg, but it is the best bootleg I have ever seen. So I bought that Flesh Crawl bootleg that's been going around of their first Descending to the Absurd, and you can tell where they've scanned an original and kind of retrofitted it to fit, you know, the templates. But this one, man, is fucking perfect. Everything is crisp. Everything is clear. The artwork is really detailed and the colors are right. I've compared it to some pictures of the original presses on Discogs, and I am willing to almost bet that this is a leftover dead stock copy. But when I put it in the CD player in the car, the CD player reads the song titles. That doesn't work on CDs from 1992. So it's definitely a repress, but it has been done really, really well. And I got it for not $15. I got it 3 for $25. So then rounding out, I picked this one up on its own. Entangled in Chaos, Morbid Angel, their 5th record, the E record, and it's one that I had overlooked, never had seen it in front of me to buy. I've always, I will talk about Morbid Angel real soon in the CD collection videos, but they're probably my second favorite death metal band of all time, and really, really, really important to me. But I always got the full lengths. And I said, well, if I ever see Entangled in Chaos, I'll buy it. It's just a live record. So I grabbed it. This is a legit copy. This is an Argentinian press that came out on Del Imaginario Discos. And it is legit. It's listed as being legit repress of it. It's not the best. It has just a little book here. And that is a list. That text all in there is every show on the Dominate tour cycle, where they toured for like a year and a half straight. One thing that annoys me about this album is that nowhere does it list when and where it was recorded. It just says that it was mixed and mastered at Morrah Sound, but it never says where or when they recorded it. But it sounds killer. It's a killer live album, man. And I had never listened to it in all my years listening to them. I'd never listened to Entangled in Chaos, but I'm glad to have a copy now to fill up my Morbid Angel collection. One more CD. I talked about this one recently. Of Great Eternity, Judas Iscariot. I bought a tape repress recently that I talked about. This particular CD, the original CD, was the only Judas Iscariot album not released on Moribund. It was released on Elegy Records, and it's not... was not kept in print. So Elegy copies are expensive, but this one was repressed on Archivist Records last year. This nice digibook. And then the inside has a glued in booklet that is really, really nice. And go back a few videos. I talk about this album a lot in my Judas Iscariot video, but it's probably my second or third favorite Judas Iscariot album, and I'm glad I have a copy of it now, and a really nice copy at that. So, okay, into records. First up, the new Full of Hell came in the mail the other day. I love Full of Hell. I see peers of mine who are into death metal discount them sometimes because they're not a death metal band, but they play with death metal bands. They play with hardcore bands. They play with everybody. They're not part of any scene. They're part of every scene. But for those of you who actually take the time to listen to them, they are fucking incredible. They are so depraved and so violent and so nasty sounding. Weeping Choir is their 4th full length, and it is more just down the fucking rabbit hole of disgusting, nasty power, violence, death grind. This copy is silver and gold and black and white speckled marble. Limited to something, but I pre-ordered this from Relapse the day it got announced. It's got a nice big fold-out booklet here. All the lyrics, artwork by Mark McCoy does all of their like album art lately. I've done a lot of t-shirt and poster designs for Full of Hell. They're my friends. I've played with them. They asked personally Father Befoul to play a show with them on their last tour here in the States, which we gladly did, and it was a lot of fun. And every time they come through, I go see them. They're really good buddies of mine. So shout out to those guys for being who they are. I love you. So then, right before I left on tour, I bought this bad boy, Nexus of Teeth by Hyperdontia. I talked about this one at length several videos ago. This, safe to say, my favorite album of last year. This copy is on like Oxblood vinyl. When this got released on LP, I passed it up. I was trying to not buy any fucking records. But I did buy the tape because I wanted to have a copy of it. So I bought the tape. Then someone was selling this one on Facebook the other day for a decent price. It's not, out of print or anything. It's not hard to find. But I snatched it up. And someone needed some money selling these records, so I grabbed it. I love this fucking record. And it is such a good example of how to play death metal in 2018. I'm real anal about death metal bands and the way they sound, and Hyperdontia just fucking nails it. I love this fucking album so much, man. I've listened to it so much. Speaking of albums that I love, last but not least, Incantation. So you know that I love Incantation. I did a whole video about them in my CD collection. This is the vinyl, the only heretofore vinyl pressing of Upon the Throne of Apocalypse. Silver and black marble vinyl. This was their second album that was never released, and it was eventually released as Mortal Throne of Apocalypse. Mortal Throne of Nazarene. Upon the Throne of Apocalypse was an alternate recording, alternate mix of Mortal Throne, and the band has often said this is the definitive version. It has an alternate track listing to Mortal Throne, and one thing I've always wanted to ask them is, was the album intended to be this reverse track listing? Was the album supposed to start with Abolishment? Abolishment is an 8-minute, like, doomy, plodding, slow song. And then Demonic Incarnate is this 6-minute just fucking riff fest. Abolishment of Immaculate Serenity is the first Incantation song I ever heard. And I told this story before, real quickly. A buddy of mine bought this CD. It was only pressed one time on CD by Relapse. And I think it was a contractual obligation thing. Like, they wanted out of their contract. And Relapse said, well, you owe us another album. So they said, well, here's what should have been the second album, but different. And they released it. It was only pressed one time, and copies were hard to come by. A buddy of mine, who I played in my first band with in high school, bought that used in the late 90s. And we were just buying up all the death metal we could find. And when we put it in his stereo and heard this song fucking pour out of the speakers like lava, I was floored. I didn't know what to think about it. It wasn't until years later that I really, really got into Incantation and found out that CD is really hard to come by. I've since got a copy. And Judd, my buddy, he's told me that if he ever goes home to his parents' house where his music is, he'll give it to me because he's not really a metal fan at all anymore. He said, you can have that CD if you want it. But anyway, it's never been pressed on vinyl. Finally pressed on vinyl. I believe it has been... No, this is the original rough mix of the recording that became Incantation's Mortal Throne of Nazarene. I don't think it has been remixed for this. I have not listened to this copy yet. I can't wait to do it. I got it like the day before we left on tour. So Abolishment is the first song I ever heard, but now years later, my absolute favorite Incantation song is Demonic Incarnate. That is, to me, that's the definitive Incantation. That's a perfect example of their sound. So I'm glad to have this. I love this original Wes Benscoter artwork. I had the pleasure of seeing Incantation yet again when we were in the Netherlands. They played NDF as well, and I got to watch them from the stage. So I was hanging out with John before the show. We were chatting backstage, and then when they went on stage to play, I just walked onto the stage and stood off to the side, and I watched their whole set from the side of the stage. If you go to my Facebook page, I posted a video of a whole song from my perspective, and it was really sick. It's funny. I started Father Befouled about 14 years ago, and Incantation has always been the number one influence on Father Befouled's sound. And I went from just being a fan of theirs and being influenced by them to being friends with them. I mean, I'm on a pretty chummy basis with John, and I've talked to Kyle from time to time. But in 14 years, I've gone from liking them to being buddies with them and getting to watch them on the stage at this huge festival. It's just really surreal, and it puts things into perspective. It's really cool. So anyway, that's my new stuff. I will be back very soon with a collection video. We are going to round out the L's here in a few days, and we'll keep going. But I'm back. Thank you for watching. Let's comment, talk about these. I got some awesome shit in this stack, and I'll talk to you guys soon.